Have you ever wondered how human rights are affected during times of conflict? Specifically, how the Israel-Hamas conflict has impacted the human rights of those involved? This is no ordinary dispute. It's a complex geopolitical issue, deeply rooted in historical and territorial disagreements that have led to a series of military confrontations with severe implications for civilians. This conflict has drawn the world's attention due to allegations of human rights violations on both sides. In the next few minutes, we will explore key events in this conflict and their impact on human rights. When we talk about the impact of conflict, the civilian population often bears the brunt of the consequences. In the Israel-Hamas conflict, this grim reality is evident. Reports of civilian casualties paint a chilling picture of the human cost of this ongoing struggle. Men, women, and children, irrespective of their roles or affiliations, have been caught in the crossfire, their lives irrevocably altered. Such incidents have not been isolated but tragically frequent, striking at the heart of densely populated areas. Damage to the critical infrastructure compounds this devastation. Schools, hospitals, water and power facilities, the very lifelines of society, haven't been spared. The destruction of these essential services disrupts the rhythm of daily life, and the rebuilding process can be painstakingly slow and resource-intensive. The use of military force in such densely populated areas is a matter of grave concern. Warfare is not about brute force alone, it's about principles of proportionality and necessity. The question arises, are these strikes proportional to the threat posed? Are they necessary, and if so, to what extent? These questions have been raised, debated, and continue to echo in the halls of international forums. The principle of proportionality in warfare stipulates that the harm caused to civilians or civilian property must be proportional to the concrete and direct military advantage anticipated. The principle of necessity, on the other hand, implies that military actions should only be undertaken when necessary to achieve a legitimate military objective. In the face of these principles, the reported civilian casualties and infrastructure damage seem to paint a disconcerting picture. It raises questions about the conduct of both Israel and Hamas during this conflict, leading to allegations of human rights violations. The toll on civilians has been significant, sparking international condemnation and calls for accountability. This isn't just about pointing fingers or assigning blame, it's about acknowledging the human cost of conflict, understanding the gravity of the situation, and working towards preventing such violations in the future. It's about ensuring that the principles of proportionality and necessity are not just words on paper, but are upheld and respected in the theater of conflict. Another pressing issue that comes to the forefront during such conflicts is displacement. Imagine being forced to vacate your home, not knowing when or if you'll ever return. That's the harsh reality for countless civilians caught in the crossfire of the Israel-Hamas conflict. The constant threat of violence compels people to abandon their lives, their homes, their sense of security. They're left with no choice but to seek refuge elsewhere, often in overcrowded, under-resourced shelters. This mass displacement puts an immense strain on humanitarian resources. It's not just about providing immediate necessities like food, water, and medical aid. It's also about ensuring the long-term well-being of those who have been uprooted from their lives. The psychological trauma, the health risks, the economic instability, these are all layers of a complex human rights crisis. Children are especially vulnerable in such situations. Their education gets disrupted, their mental health is at risk, and they're exposed to the harsh realities of life at a tender age. The scars of displacement run deep, and they last long. The ripple effects of such displacement are felt across communities, across generations. It's a crisis that extends beyond the immediate conflict and seeps into the fabric of society. It's a crisis that demands our attention, our empathy, and our action. As we delve deeper into the Israel-Hamas conflict, let's not forget the human faces behind the statistics, the stories behind the headlines. The displacement crisis continues to pose a significant humanitarian challenge. The international community has not remained silent on the alleged human rights violations in the Israel-Hamas conflict. The United Nations, alongside a multitude of human rights organizations, has been vocal in expressing its concerns. These bodies have persistently called for thorough, impartial investigations into the allegations of violations of international humanitarian law. These investigations serve a crucial purpose. They aim to ascertain the truth, to separate fact from fiction in a conflict often shrouded in misinformation. They work to identify those responsible for the alleged violations, to establish a clear understanding of culpability. And most importantly, they strive to hold these parties accountable for their actions, maintaining that no entity, regardless of its power or position, should be exempt from the reaches of international law. But these calls for justice are not just about holding parties responsible for past actions. They're about preventing future violations, about creating a deterrent for potential perpetrators. They're about ensuring the protection of civilians in the face of conflict, about upholding the sanctity of human rights even in the most challenging circumstances. However, the road to justice is often long and fraught with obstacles. Amidst differing narratives and political complexities, the task of establishing clear accountability can be daunting. Yet, the international community remains undeterred. The quest for justice and accountability remains a central focus in the international response to the conflict. The complexities of the Israel-Hamas conflict make finding a resolution challenging, but not impossible. As we draw towards the end of this discussion, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned. The conflict, deeply rooted in historical and territorial disputes, has seen numerous accusations of human rights violations. The impact on civilians has been devastating, with reports of casualties, displacement, and significant damage to vital infrastructure. The use of military force in densely populated areas has raised serious questions about the proportionality and necessity of such actions. This crisis has led to an urgent call for accountability from the international community. The United Nations and human rights organizations have demanded thorough and impartial investigations into these alleged violations. The goal is to identify the responsible parties and hold them accountable for any breaches of international law. Yet, the solution extends beyond immediate ceasefire agreements. It requires a comprehensive and lasting resolution to the underlying issues. This is where the importance of ongoing diplomatic efforts, dialogue, and international cooperation comes into play. There may be different perspectives on human rights violations based on different narratives. However, what remains constant is the need for a just and sustainable peace. This is the only path towards stability in the region. As we continue to monitor the situation, the protection of human rights and the promotion of a just and sustainable peace remain integral to achieving stability in the region.